What is the single most important object in modern Britain? Forget the crown jewels, forget the Magna Carta, forget a decent cup of tea. The real symbol of this nation, the one thing that truly unites millions from every walk of life, is a golden, flaky, suspiciously cheap tube of meat wrapped in pastry. I am, of course, talking about the Greggs sausage roll. If you're not from the UK, you're probably thinking, it's just a cheap bakery. What's the big deal? That's like saying the pyramids are just a pile of rocks. Greggs is a cultural behemoth. It's a billion-pound empire that stared down the avocado toast and 5-pound latte trends and said, nah, you're alright. This is the story of how a humble baker on a bicycle built a fast food juggernaut that conquered a nation. So, grab a steak bake and settle in, because we're about to uncover how Greggs won the battle for Britain's wallet and its heart. This story begins on the cobbled streets of Newcastle upon Tyne back in 1939. The world was on the brink of war, but a man named John Gregg had a simpler mission on his mind. With a pushbike and a basket, he started delivering fresh eggs, yeast, and loaves of bread to the working-class families of the Northeast. He built trust street by street, embedding his name into the fabric of the community by showing up with honest food at a fair price, one doorstep at a time. By the 1950s, that delivery business had grown enough for John to open his first actual bakery shop on Gosforth High Street. It sold freshly baked goods made on site. The Gregg family now had a foothold in retail, and over the next decade, the single shop turned into a handful. When John passed away in 1964, his son Ian took over. And Ian had a very different kind of vision. He was interested in scale. Greggs wasn't a giant by that point, but it was profitable and growing, and Ian understood that the UK was dotted with small family-run bakeries that had local loyalty but limited resources. Rather than compete, Ian saw a smarter path: absorb. He began buying up those local bakeries, starting in the north. Greggs brought capital, a robust supply chain, and operational expertise. In return, it inherited decades of community trust and regional recipes, acquiring bakeries like Thurston's in Leeds and Price's in Manchester. By 1972, Greggs had 26 shops. By the 1980s, it had become a familiar sight across the north, even as far up as Glasgow. But for decades, Greggs was just that, a reliable, slightly old-fashioned bakery. You'd go there for a loaf of bread, some buns for a barbecue, maybe a sausage roll if you were lucky. They kept opening new shops, kept absorbing competitors, and reached 1,500 shops nationwide by the year 2011. But still, the core business model hadn't changed all that much since the 70s. The moment that really rocketed Greggs into the stratosphere came in 2013 with the arrival of a new CEO, Roger Whiteside. He took one look at the books and had a revelation. He saw that about 3/4 of visits weren't from people buying loaves of bread to take home. It was from food on the go. The world had changed. People weren't making sarnies for their packed lunch at home as much, but they were desperate for a quick, cheap, and tasty lunch. So Whiteside made a decision that was both brave and brilliant. He announced that Greggs would no longer try to compete with supermarkets on bread. Instead, they would pivot hard into the fast food market. They doubled down on what people truly wanted: pastries, sandwiches, and hot drinks. They extended their opening hours to catch the breakfast rush, launching bacon roll and coffee deals that were too good to refuse. They revamped their stores, making them brighter, more modern, and geared for quick service. This was the moment Greggs stopped being your nan's favorite bakery and started being your go-to spot for a cheap and cheerful bite from dawn till dusk. The engine room of this entire operation is a model of ruthless efficiency. The mission is deceptively simple: provide good, fresh food at prices everyone can afford. To do this, they operate like a well-oiled machine. Most of their iconic products are made in massive, centralized production facilities and then shipped out to their 2,600 plus shops, often multiple times a day. This gives them an iron grip on quality control, and more importantly, it allows them to keep that sausage roll price tantalizingly low. Their food is never going to win a Michelin star, but that wasn't the point. It's consistent and reliable. A sausage roll in Glasgow tastes exactly the same as one in Guildford. It's the McDonald's of the bakery world, and that's not an insult. It's the entire foundation of their success. Value and convenience are the twin pillars of the Greggs empire. They don't tell the full story of why this brand runs so deep. To truly understand Greggs, you have to understand the north-south divide in Britain. It's a real cultural and economic fault line, and you can map it perfectly using two high street chains: Greggs and its upmarket, London-centric rival, Pret. In its longtime home up north, Greggs is like a religion, a comforting taste of home. Sure, a lot of southerners feel the same way, but the numbers show that Greggs doesn't hold quite the same appeal down in Greater London, just like how Pret-a-Manger hasn't managed the same level of market penetration in the north. This connection is so profound that a study by Sheffield Hallam University actually created the Greggs Pret Index. They used the locations of the two chains to algorithmically draw the precise line separating the north from the south. The result was a diagonal slice from the south coast up through Norfolk, basically cordoning off London and the affluent southeast. It exposed a deep truth that our lunch choices are a powerful signifier of our cultural and economic identity. In those southern, Pret-dominated territories, Greggs has at times been viewed with a certain snobbery. It was often the punchline of a joke, an ironic guilty pleasure for a city banker who would never admit to it in polite company. Critics would complain that the pastries were sometimes lukewarm. But here's the kicker: that's not a flaw, it's a feature. The lukewarm temperature is a deliberate genius business move. By not keeping products hot for consumption and selling them as they cool, Greggs stays within VAT rules that mainly target food sold to be eaten hot, passing the savings directly onto you. The very thing the critics mocked was a masterstroke in providing maximum value. This north-south dynamic is a perfect microcosm of the UK, a tale of class, identity, and the unifying power of a pasty that costs less than a bottle of water in central London. So, with this wildly successful formula, you'd think they'd be on every street corner from New York to New Delhi, right? Wrong. While rivals like Pret and Costa have planted their flags all over the globe, Greggs has resolutely stayed home. Their international adventures have been short and half-hearted, including a failed foray into Belgium that was quietly abandoned. But why? This isn't a brand that's afraid to take risks. The simple truth is, it's a gamble they don't need to take. Firstly, logistics. The Greggs model is built on a supply chain that's fine-tuned for the UK's geography. Replicating that complex network of bakeries, distribution centers, and delivery routes in another country would be a logistical and financial nightmare. But there's a much more cultural reason. The sausage roll, the steak bake, the cheese and onion pasty, these are a specific dialect of the British culinary language. They're comfort food for a nation raised on savory pastries. Could you really convince a Parisian to swap their croissant for a steak bake? Would an American ever truly grasp the simple life-affirming joy of a sausage and bean melt? The CEO has been clear. Their strategy is to open significantly more than 3,000 shops right here in the UK. They see massive potential for growth by implementing a laser-focused strategy on serving the people who already adore them at home. This means investing in drive-thrus, delivery partnerships, and late-night openings. And that strategy paid off in the most spectacular way possible. In the last few years, as Britain was hammered by a brutal cost of living crisis, a funny thing happened. While other businesses were closing down, Greggs thrived. People's wallets got lighter, and the value proposition of Greggs became impossible to ignore. In late 2022, they announced a 15% surge in sales. When a supermarket meal deal pushes past £5, a delicious pastry for a quid or so feels like a lifeline. Greggs became the unofficial sponsor of the recession. It became the comfort food you could still afford, a little luxury in tough times. The journey of Greggs is a reflection of modern Britain. It's about a working-class hero from the north that scaled up without ever losing its soul. But what do you think is next for the undisputed king of the high street, and which side of the Pret-Greggs fault line does your hometown fall on? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into a true British icon, do us a favor and hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next video. Cheers for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.